this week for our video, something I'm not very good at baking, but my sister Deborah is. So today what I'm doing that scares me is I'm gonna bake something and then I'm gonna eat it. Because that's even scarier. So the thing
that's what I'm doing that scares me.
Eating my cooking or my baking. Our baking. I'm not worried to eat yours. Okay. So this is a Death by Oreo cheesecake. Right? And I'll put a link down below to my sister's blog. She bakes quite a bit. But we're making a little adjustment. Instead of it just being regular Oreos, we're using Mint Oreos.
Yay!
So, okay, what's the first thing we need to do?
Alright, first we're going to go ahead and start with actually our Oreos. So we can go ahead and pick these back up. Woohoo! So with the Oreos, we're going to start by separating 2/3 of the packet that we have here. And we're going to divide filling from the cookie itself.
I can't open it. We put all of the cookies in here.
And all the filling is in here.
Okay.
So we'll save this for later. We're going to use this actually as a drizzle for later to put on top of it, which works excellent by the way. It's so good. Let's go ahead and start crushing the Oreos. Okay. If you look at how this is right now, it's not necessarily like perfectly fine, kind of like what we're looking for, but it's enough to the point where it'll work for the crust and stuff like that, especially if you're working it into, with the butter and things like that to be able to make it into the crust. So this is good. So we're going to go with the amount that I'm feeling here. I think, and especially like for the lower climate, if we were in, for example, higher elevation place, we probably would use just a little bit more butter because it's supposed to help a little bit with it kind of firming up more. So, okay, have your spatula ready.
We're stirring it in as you dump it in?
Yes. That way it'll start incorporating. So the positive side is we don't have to bake this, so go ahead and dump that in. And if you don't have a spatula, that's fine, but usually I use the spatula to form it to as much of the inside of the pan as I can. Now, we're going to go ahead and set this in the, I forgot what it's called, the refrigerator, for a certain amount of time so it can kind of set up. This is where we actually get to start working on the actual cheesecake bit itself. We've got our cream cheese. Usually best at room temperature, just warning. We'll need 12 ounces, so good. Cream cheese block number 1.
And there's number 2.
So to soften cream cheese and stuff like that, usually it means to beat it so then you can make it more pliable, make it so then you will be able to form it more into its, I guess, intended and desired form.
Okay, so do I just dump the 1/3 cup of sugar in here?
Yes. Let's go ahead and mix that first. Do you want to turn mixing or do you want me to hold it?
Sure.
Okay. We might actually have probably just that 1 cup. Like Sarah was saying, it kind of starts out with kind of a cottage cheese looking consistency, and it's totally 100% normal because, obviously if you're mixing 2 things of different consistencies and stuff like that, they'll look right. So halfway through, it's a good thing, like this is their consistency, which is good. It's good to scrape the entire bowl down in general, just to kind of get an idea, make sure that you have everything well incorporated. Like, despite the fact that, sometimes a blender will blend a lot of it, it's good to make sure that you don't miss any bits or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and incorporate our vanilla in. The reason you want to add this in last, actually, is because it's the main flavor booster for this portion. 1/4 of a teaspoon. 1/4 of a teaspoon, I like. And go ahead and mix that in. So, one thing always to be cautious of when you're making cheesecakes and things like that, especially with no-bake cheesecakes, because it has the heavy whipping cream in it, even though the cream cheese is supposed to counteract it, kind of as like a hardening agent, sometimes over whipping it will cause it to slip. Like, not solidify, but to become liquid again.
More liquid? Okay.
Yeah. So, as you can see how this is, you can see how it's kind of not moving as quickly. This is literally the perfect consistency. Thankfully, with the time that we've had, you know, putting this together and putting that together, our crust should be in good of enough state right now that we should be able to take it out of the fridge and we'll be able to start putting it together. Good way to be able to test it is to kind of shake it like this. If it starts moving around at all, kind of thing, that means that it hasn't kind of hardened enough. And would you like to go ahead and start scooping it out into this?
Sure.
Make it as even as possible if you can. Ta-da! This is our first part. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to let this go ahead and sit in the fridge for a little bit while we work on the next part, which is creating the whipping cream that we're going to use to decorate the top. Okay. Now here's your lesson with whipping cream. So heavy whipping cream, when acting on its own, I guess you could say, can be kind of a tricky thing sometimes. You need to start out in small amounts when you're mixing it so you can get it to peak. Do you know what peaking means?
Is that when it gets fluffy?
Right, when it gets fluffy. And so we're going to start with this a little bit. And handy dandy whisking tool. We're going to go ahead and start with a small amount.
Do I start whipping it right now?
Yes. Whipping cream and pour in a little bit. You don't want to overwhelm the amount that you have in there, so do it in small increments and incorporate it in, and then you'll be able to continue having that large peak.
So how do you know when to add more?
When the peak has gone back up again.
Okay.
So once it's a firm peak again, that's when you can add more.
Okay.
There you go. I think that's perfect. Okay, it will still be a little bit jiggly, but it'll work perfect for what we need it for. So we'll go ahead and tray this out. So here's the cheesecake. Next we're going to go ahead and start crushing the Oreos just on top.
When I was a kid, just like, I loved getting so messy. And I'm like, oh, this is so fun. Like, my hands are getting all, like, I'm covered in Oreo gut.
Went ahead and we mixed and melted our centers for the Oreos that we had set aside earlier. Now what we're going to do is we're actually just going to drizzle it across it kind of like this. Just kind of go like that, just to kind of give it a little bit of like a color, texture, pattern differentiation from what you're seeing normally. So if you want, hold on, give me a second. I'll just do like that much, and then you can go spastic with it.
Okay, and go spastic with it?
Go spastic with it. I'm going to go ahead and show you. This is a Wilton number 2D tip. It's a closed star tip. It's a 6-point for you bakers out there. And we're going to use this actually as our icing for our whipped cream. So normally I do it in a dragging motion where you start in one place and you just start kind of going over like this. See, one other thing we're missing, chocolate chips. Chocolate syrup helps to add a little bit of the contrast as well. I'll do it in like a small like zigzag.
So am I just sprinkling this on it? I'll wait till after.
So you can kind of make the center like a sun kind of thing. I'd say that's the best pattern to kind of go about with that.
Do I want to just keep the chocolate chips in the center?
Try and keep them in the center, yeah. And if it does get on the whipped cream, it's like, eh. So there you have it. There's the bite.
And then how long do you let this, I mean, you could eat it right now.
You can eat it right now technically, but I would let it set for 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do something every day that scares you. And I'll put down links to Deborah's blog down in the description box below. And we'll see you next week.
Bye. See ya.